Jack Kerouac's The Dharma Bums. Chapter 13. When I got up the next day, I couldn't help smiling, thinking of Jaffe standing huddled in the night outside the fancy restaurant, wondering if we would be let in or not. It was the first time I'd ever seen him afraid of anything. I planned to tell him about such things that night, when he'd be coming over. But that night, everything happened. First, Alva left and went out for a few hours, and I was alone reading when suddenly I heard a bike in the yard. And I looked, and it was Princess. "Where's everybody?" says she. "How long can you stay?" "I've got to go right away, unless I call my mother." "Let's call." "Okay." We went down to the corner gas station payphone, and she said she'd be home in 2 hours. And as we walked back along the sidewalk, I put my arm around her waist, but way around, with my fingers digging into her belly. And she said, "Ooh, I can't stand that," and almost fell down on the sidewalk and bit my shirt just as an old woman was coming our way, ogling us angrily. And after she passed us, we clinched in a big, mad, passionate kiss under the trees of evening. We rushed to the cottage, where she spent an hour literally spinning in my arms, and Alva walked in right in the middle of our funny ministrations of the Bodhisattva. We took our usual bath together. It was great, sitting in the hot tub, chatting and soaping each other's backs. Poor Princess. She meant every word she said. I really felt good about her, and compassionate, and even warned her. Now don't go wild and get into orgies with 15 guys on a mountaintop. Jaffe came after she left, and then Coughlin came, and suddenly we had wine. A mad party began in the cottage. It started off with Coughlin and me, drunk now, walking arm in arm down the main drag of town, carrying huge, almost impossibly huge flowers of some kind we'd found in the garden, and a new jug of wine, shouting haikus and whoos and satoris at everybody we saw in the street, and everybody was smiling at us. "Walked 5 miles, carrying huge flower," yelled Coughlin. And I liked him now. He was deceptively scholarly looking, or fatty boom-boom looking, but he was a real man. We went to visit some professor of the English department at U of Cal. We knew that Coughlin left his shoes on the lawn and danced right into the astonished professor's house. In fact, frightened him somewhat, though Coughlin was a fairly well-known poet by now. Then, barefooted, with our huge flowers and jugs, we went back to the cottage. It was now about 10. I had just gotten some money in the mail that day, a fellowship of $300. So I said to Jaffe, "Well, I've learned everything now. I'm ready. How about driving me to Oakland tomorrow and helping me buy all my rucksack and gear and stuff so I can take off for the desert?" "Good. I'll get Morley's car and be over to get you first thing in the morning. But right now, how about some of that wine?" I turned on the little red bandana dim bulb, and we poured wine and all sat around talking. It was a great night of talk. First Jaffe started telling his later life story, like when he was a merchant seaman in New York port and went around with a dagger on his hip, 1948, which surprised Alva and me, and then about the girl he was in love with, who lived in California. I had a hard-on for her 3,000 miles long. Goodness. Then Coughlin said, "Tell him about Grape Plum, Jaff." Instantly, Jaffe said, Grape Plum Zen Master was asked what the great meaning of Buddhism was, and he said, rush flowers, willow catkins, bamboo needles, linen thread. In other words, hang on, boy, the ecstasy's generals. What he means, ecstasy of the mind, the world, is nothing but mind. And what is the mind? The mind is nothing but the world. God damn it. The horse ancestor said, "This mind is Buddha." He also said, "No, mind is Buddha." Then finally, talking about great plum, his boy. The plum is ripe. Well, that's pretty interesting, said Alva. But que sont les négés d'antan? Well, I sort of agree with you, because the trouble is these people saw the flowers like they were in a dream, but damn it all, the world is real, Smith, and Goldbook, and everybody carries on like it was a dream. Shit, like they were themselves dreams or dots. Pain or love or danger makes you real again. Ain't that right, Ray? Like when you were scared on that ledge. Everything was real. Okay. That's why frontiersmen are always heroes, and were always my real heroes, and will always be. They're constantly on the alert in the realness, which might as well be real as unreal. What difference does it make? Diamond Sutra says, make no formed conceptions about the realness of existence, nor about the unrealness of existence. Or words like that. Handcuffs will get soft and billy cans will topple over. Let's go on being free anyhow. The President of the United States suddenly grows cross-eyed and floats away. I yell. And anchovies will turn to dust, yells Coughlin. The Golden Gate is creaking with sunset rust, says Alva. And anchovies will turn to dust, insists Coughlin. Give me another slug of that jug. How? Ho! Who? Jaffe leaping up. I've been reading Whitman. Know what he says? Cheer up, slaves, and horrify foreign despots. He means that's the attitude for the bard, the Zen lunacy bards of old desert paths. See, the whole thing is a world full of rucksack wanderers, Dharma bums refusing to subscribe to the general demand that they consume production and therefore have to work for the privilege of consuming. All that crap they didn't really want anyway, such as refrigerators, TV sets, cars, at least new fancy cars. Certain hair oils and deodorants and general junk you finally always see a week later in the garbage anyway. All of them imprisoned in a system of work. Produce, consume, work. Produce, consume. I see a vision of a great rucksack revolution. Thousands or even millions of young Americans wandering through with rucksacks, going up to mountains to pray, making children laugh and old men glad, making young girls happy and old girls happier, all of them Zen lunatics, who go about writing poems that happen to appear in their heads for no reason, and also by being kind, and also by strange unexpected acts, keep giving visions of eternal freedom to everybody and to all living creatures. That's what I like about you, Goldbook and Smith. You two guys from the East Coast, which I thought was dead. We thought the West Coast was dead. You've really brought a fresh wind around here. Why do you realize the Jurassic pure granite of Sierra Nevada, with the staggering high conifers and the last ice age and lakes we just saw, is one of the greatest expressions on this earth. Just think how truly great and wise America will be, with all this energy and exuberance and space focused into the Dharma. Oh, Alva, balls on that tired Dharma. Ho! What we need is a floating zendo, where an old bodhisattva can wander from place to place and always be sure to find a spot to sleep in some friends and cook up mush. The boys was glad and rested up for more, and Jack cooked mush in honor of the door, I recited. What's that? That's a poem I wrote. The boys was sitting in a grove of trees, listening to Buddy explain the keys. Boys, says he, the Dharma is a door. Let's see, boys, I say the keys, 'cause there's lots of keys, but only one door, one hive for bees. So listen to me, and I'll try to tell all, as I heard it long ago in the Pure Land Hall. For you good boys with wine-soaked teeth, that can't understand these words on a heath, I'll make it simpler, like a bottle of wine and a good wood fire under stars divine. Now listen to me, and when you have learned the Dharma of the Buddhas of all, and yearned to sit with the truth under a lonesome tree, in Yuma, Arizona, or anywhere you be, don't thank me for telling what was told me. This is the wheel I'm turning. This is the reason I be. Mind is the maker for no reason at all, for all this creation created to fall. But that's too pessimistic. I like dream gucky, says Alva, though the rhyme is pure like Melville. Well, I've a floatin' zendo for buddies, wine-soaked boys who came and lay up in and learn to drink tea like Ray did. Learn to meditate like you should, Alva. And I'll be a head monk of a zendu with a big jar full of crickets. Crickets? Yes, sir. That's what a series of monasteries for fellows to go and monostate and meditate in. We can have groups of shacks up in the Sierras or the high Cascades, or even Ray says down in Mexico, and have big wild gangs of pure holy men getting together to drink and talk and pray. Think of the waves of salvation can flow out of nights like that. And finally, have women too, wives, small huts with religious families, like the old days of the Puritans. Who's to say the cops of America and the Republicans and Democrats are going to tell everybody what to do? What's the crickets? Big jar of crickets. Give me another drink, Coughlin. About 1/10 of an inch long with huge white antennae. And hatch 'em myself. Little sentient beings in a bottle that sing real good when they grow up. I want to swim in rivers and drink goat milk and talk with priests and just read Chinese books and amble around the valleys talking to farmers and their children. We've got to have mind-collecting weeks in our zendos, where your mind tries to fly off like a tinker toy, and like a good soldier, you put it back together with your eyes closed, except, of course, the whole thing is wrong. Do you hear my latest poem, Goldbook? No, what? Mother of children, sister, daughter of sick old man, virgin, your blouse is torn. Hungry and bare-legged, I'm hungry too. Take these poems. Fine. Fine. I want a bicycle in hot afternoon heat, wear Pakistan lather sandals, shout in high voice at Zen monk buddies standing in the hemp summer robes and stubble heads. Want to live in golden pavilion temples, drink beer, say goodbye to Yokohama Big Buzz, Asia port full of vassals and vessels, hope, work around, come back, go to Japan, come back to USA, read haikuin, grit my teeth, and discipline myself all the time while getting nowhere, and thereby learn that my body and everything gets tired and ill and droopy, and so find out all about Haikuyu. Who's Haikuyu? His name meant white obscurity. His name meant he who lived in the hills back of northern Whitewater, where I'm gonna go hiking. My God, it must be full of steep piney gorges and bamboo valleys and little cliffs. I'll go with you. Me? I want to read about Haikuin, who went to see this old man who lived in a cave, slept with deer and ate chestnuts, and the old man told him to quit meditating and quit thinking about koans, as Ray says, and instead learn how to go to sleep and wake up. Said, when you go to sleep, you should put your legs together and take deep breaths and then concentrate your mind on a spot 1.5 inches below your navel until you feel it get like a ball of power, and then start breathing from your heels. Clear up and concentrate, saying to yourself that the center just here is Amita's pure land, the center of the mind, and when you wake up, you should start by consciously breathing and stretching a little and thinking the same thoughts. See the rest of the time. That's what I like. See, says Alva, these actual signposts to something. What else? The rest of the time he said, don't bother about thinking about nothing. Just eat well, not too much, and sleep good. And old Hakuyu said he was 300 friggin' years old just then and figured he was good for 500 more. By God. Which makes me think he must still be up there, if he's anybody at all. Or the sheep herder kicked his dog, puts in Coughlin. I bet I can find that cave in Japan. You can't live in this world, but there's nowhere else to go, laughs Coughlin. What's that mean? I asked. It means the chair I sit in is a lion throne, and the lion is walking. He roars. What's he say? Says Rahula, Rahula, face of glory, universe chawed and swallowed. Ah, balls, I yell. I'm going to Marin County in a few weeks, said Jaffy. Go walk 100 times around Tamalpais and help purify the atmosphere and accustom the local spirits to the sound of sutra. What you think, Alva? I think it's all lovely hallucination, but I love it, sorta. Alva, trouble with you is you don't do plenty of night zazing, especially when it's cold out. That's best. Besides, you should get married and have half-breed babies, manuscripts, homespun blankets, and mother's milk on your happy ragged mat floor, like this one. Get yourself a house, not too far from town. Live cheap. Go ball in the bars once in a while. Write and rumble in the hills, and learn how to saw boards and talk to grandmas, you damn fool. Carry loads of wood for them, clap your hands at shrines, get supernatural favors, take flower arrangement lessons, and grow chrysanthemums by the door. And get married, for Christ's sakes. Get a friendly, smart, sensitive human being gal who don't give a shit for martinis every night and all that dumb white machinery in the kitchen. Oh, says Alva, sitting up glad. And what else? Think of barn swallows and nighthawks filling the fields. Do you know, says Ray, since yesterday I translated another stanza of Han Shan. Listen. Cold Mountain is a house without beams or walls. The 6 doors left, the right are open. The hall is the blue sky. The rooms are vacant and empty. The east wall strikes the west wall. At the center, not one thing. Borrowers don't trouble me. In the cold I build a little fire. When I'm hungry, I boil up some greens. I've got no use for the kulak with his big barn and pasture. He just sets up a prison for himself. Once in, he can't get out. Think it over. It might happen to you. Then Jaffy picked up his guitar and got going on songs. Finally, I took the guitar and made up a song as I went along, plucking on the strings any old way, actually drumming on them with my fingertips, drum, 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 and sang the song of the Midnight Ghost freight train. That's about the Midnight Ghost in California, but you know what it made me think of, Smith? Hot, very hot bamboo growing up to 40 feet out there and whipping around in the breeze, and hot, and a bunch of monks are making a racket on their flutes somewhere, and when they recite sutras with a steady kuwakatul. Oh my God. But you know what it made me think of, Smith? Hot, very hot bamboo growing up to 40 feet out there and whipping around in the breeze, and hot, and a bunch of monks are making a racket on their flutes somewhere, and when they recite sutras with a steady Kuwakatul dance, drumbeat, and riffs on the bells and sticks, it's something to hear like a big prehistoric coyote chanting. Things tucked away in all you mad guys, like that go back to the days when men married bears and talked to the buffalo, by God. Give me another drink. Keep your socks darned, boys, and your boots greased. But as though that wasn't enough, Coughlin says quite calmly cross-legged. Sharpen your pencils, straighten your ties, shine your shoes, and button your flies. Brush your teeth, comb your hair, sweep the floor, eat blueberry pies. Open your eyes. Eat blueberry pies is good, says Alva, fingering his lip seriously. Remembering all the while that I have tried very hard, but the rhododendron tree is only half enlightened, and ants and bees are communist, and trolley cars are bored. And little Japanese boys in the F train sing Inky Dinky Parley-Voo, I yell. And the mountains live in total ignorance, so I don't give up. Take off your shoes and put 'em in your pocket. Now I've answered all your questions. Too bad. Give me a drink. Muva suje. Don't step on the ball sucker, I yelled drunk. Try to do it without stepping on the aardvark, says Coughlin. Don't be a sucker all your life. Dummy up, you dope. Do you see what I mean? My lion is fed. I sleep at his side. Oh, says Alva, I wish I could take all this down. And I was pretty amazed by the fast, wonderful yak, yak, yak darts in my sleeping brain. We all got dizzy and drunk. It was a mad night. It ended up with Coughlin and me wrestling and making holes in the wall and almost knocking the little cottage down. Alva was pretty mad the next day. During the wrestling match, I practically broke poor Coughlin's leg. Myself, I got a bad splinter of wood stuck an inch up into my skin, and it didn't come out till almost a year later. Meanwhile, at some point, Morley appeared in the doorway, like a ghost carrying 2 quarts of yogurt, and wanting to know if we wanted some. Jaffe left at about 2 a.m., saying he'd come back and get me in the morning for our big day outfitting, me with full pack. Everything was fine with Zen lunatics. The nut wagon was too far away to hear us, but there was a wisdom in it all, as you'll see if you take a walk some night on a suburban street and pass house after house on both sides of the street, each with the lamplight of the living room shining golden, and inside the little blue square of the television, each living family riveting its attention on probably one show. Nobody talking, silence in the yards, dogs barking at you because you pass on human feet instead of on wheels. You'll see what I mean when it begins to appear, like everybody in the world is going to be thinking the same way, and the Zen lunatics have long joined dust, laughter on their dust lips. Only one thing I'll say for the people watching television, the millions and millions of the one eye. They're not hurting anyone while they're sitting in front of that eye. But neither was Jaffe. I see him in future years stalking along with full rucksack in suburban streets, passing the blue television windows of homes. Alone, his thoughts, the only thoughts not electrified to the master switch. As for me, maybe the answer was in my little buddy poem that kept on, who played this cruel joke on bloke after bloke, packing like a rat across the desert flat. Asked Montana Slim, gesturing to him, the buddy of the men in this lion's den. Was it God got mad like the Indian cad, who was only a giver, crooked like the river, gave you a garden, let it harden, then comes the flood and the loss of your blood? Pray tell us, good buddy, and don't make it muddy, who played this trick on Harry and Dick? And why is so mean this eternal scene? Just what's the point of this whole joint? I thought maybe I could find out at last from these Dharma bums. Yeah, good luck with that. Anyway. Chapter 14. But I had my own little bangtail ideas, and they had nothing to do with the lunatic part of all this. I wanted to get me a full packed complete with everything necessary to sleep. Shelter, eat, cook. In fact, a regular kitchen and bedroom right on my back. And go off somewhere and find perfect solitude and look into the perfect emptiness of my mind and be completely neutral from any and all ideas. I intended to pray, too. As my only activity, pray for all living creatures. I saw it was the only decent activity left in the world. To be in some river bottom somewhere, or in a desert, or in mountains, or in some hut in Mexico, or a shack in Adirondack, and rest and be kind and do nothing else, practice what the Chinese call do nothing. I didn't want to have anything to do, really, either with Jaffe's ideas about society. I figured it would be better just to avoid it altogether, walk around it, or with any of Alva's ideas about grasping after life as much as you can because of its sweet sadness and because you would be dead someday. When Jaffe came to get me the following morning, I had all this in mind. He and I and Alva drove to Oakland in Morley's car and went first to some Goodwill stores and Salvation Army stores to buy various flannel shirts at 50 cents a crack and undershirts. We were all hung up on colored undershirts. Just a minute after walking across the street in the clean morning sun, Jaffe said, "You know the Earth is a fresh planet. Why worry about anything?" Which is true. Now we were foraging with bemused countenances among all kinds of dusty old bins filled with the washed and mended shirts of all the old bums in the Skid Row universe. I bought socks, one pair of long woolen Scotch socks that go way up over your knees, which would be useful enough on a cold night meditating in the frost. And I bought a nice little canvas jacket with a zipper for 90 cents. Then we drove to the huge Army-Navy store in Oakland and went way in the back where sleeping bags were hanging from hooks and all kinds of equipment, including Morley's famous air mattress, water cans, flashlights, tents, rifles, canteens, rubber boots, incredible doodahs for hunters and fishermen, out of which Jaffe and I found a lot of useful little things for Bakus. He bought an aluminum pot holder and made me a gift of it. It never burns you, being aluminum, and you just pluck your pots right out of the campfire with it. He selected an excellent duck-down used sleeping bag for me, zipping it open and examining the inside. Then a brand-new rucksack, of which I was so proud. "I'll give you my own old sleeping bag cover," he said. Then I bought little plastic snow glasses just for the hell of it, and railroad gloves, new ones. I figured I had good enough boots back home east, where I was going for Christmas. Otherwise, I would have bought a pair of Italian mountain boots like Jaffe had. We drove from Oakland store to Berkeley again to the ski shop, where as we walked in and the clerk came over, Jaffe said in his lumberjack voice, "Outfitting me friends for the apocalypse." And he led me to the back of the store and picked out a beautiful nylon poncho with hood, which you put over you and even over your rucksack, making a huge hunchback monk, and which completely protects you from the rain. It again also be made into pup tent, and can also be used as your sleeping mat under the sleeping bag. I bought a polybedenum bottle with screw top, which could be used, I said to myself, to carry honey up to the mountains. But I later used it as a canteen for wine more than anything else, and later, when I made some money, as a canteen for whiskey. I also bought a plastic shaker, which came in very handy. Just a tablespoon of powdered milk and a little creek water, and you shake yourself up a glass of milk. I bought a whole bunch of food wraps like Jaffe's. I was all outfitted for the apocalypse indeed, no joke about that. If an atom bomb should have hit San Francisco that night, all I'd have to do is hike on out of there, if possible, and with my dried foods all packed tight, and my bedroom and kitchen on my head, no trouble in the world. The final big purchases were my cookpots, 2 large pots fitting into each other, with a handled cover that was also the frying pan, and tin cups, and small fitted together cutlery in aluminum. Jaffe made me another present from his own pack, a regular tablespoon, but he took out his pliers and twisted the handle up back and said, "See, when you want to pluck a pot out of a big fire, just go flop." I felt like a new man. Chapter 15. I put on my new flannel shirt and new socks and underwear and my jeans and packed the rucksack tight and slung it on and went to San Francisco that night just to get the feel of walking around the city night with it on my back. I walked down Mission Street singing merrily. I went to Skid Row, 3rd Street, to enjoy my favorite fresh donuts and coffee, and the bums in there were all fascinated and wanted to know if I was going uranium hunting. I didn't want to start making speeches about what I was going to hunt for was infinitely more valuable to mankind in the long run than ore, but let them tell me, "Boy, all you got to do is go to that Colorado country and take off your pack there and a nice little Geiger counter, and you'll be a millionaire." Everybody in Skid Row wants to be a millionaire. "Okay, boys," I said, "maybe I'll do that. Lots of uranium up in the Yukon country, too. And down in Chihuahua," said the old man. "Bet any dough there's uranium in Chihuahua." I went out of there and walked around San Francisco with my huge pack happy. I went over to Rosie's place to see Cody and Rosie. I was amazed to see her. She'd changed so suddenly. She was suddenly skinny and a skeleton, and her eyes were huge with terror and popping out of her face. "What's the matter?" Cody drew me into the other room and didn't want me to talk to her. "She's got like this in the last 48 hours, he whispered. "What's the matter with her?" "She says she wrote out a list of all our names and all our sins. She says, and then tried to flush them down the toilet where she works, and the long list of paper stuck in the toilet, and she had to send for some sanitation character to clean up the mess, and she claims he wore a uniform and was a cop and took it with him to the police station, and we're all going to be arrested. She's just nuts, that's all." Cody was my old buddy who'd let me live in his attic in San Francisco years ago, an old trusted friend. "And did you see the marks on her arms?" Yes, I had seen her arms, which were all cut up. She tried to slash her wrist with some old knife that doesn't cut right. I'm worried about her. Will you watch her while I go to work tonight? Oh, man. Oh, man, don't be like that. You know what it says in the Bible, even unto the least of these. All right, but I was planning on having fun tonight. Fun isn't everything. You've got some responsibilities sometimes, you know. I didn't have a chance to show off my new pack in the place. He drove me to the cafeteria on Van Ness, where I got Rosie a bunch of sandwiches with his money, and I went back alone and tried to make her eat. She sat in the kitchen staring at me. "But you don't realize what this means," she kept saying. "Now they know everything about you." "Who?" "You." "Me?" "You and Alva and Cody and that Jaffe Ryder. All of you and me. Everybody that hangs around the place. We're all going to be arrested tomorrow, if not sooner." She looked at the door in sheer terror. "Why'd you try to cut your arms like that? Isn't that a mean thing to do to yourself?" "Because I don't want to live. I'm telling you, there's going to be a big new revolution of police now." "No, there's going to be a rucksack revolution," I said, laughing. not realizing how serious the situation was. In fact, Cody and I had no sense. We should have known from her arms how far she wanted to go. "Listen to me," I began. But she wouldn't listen. "Don't you realize what's happening?" she yelled, staring at me with big, wide, sincere eyes, trying to, by crazy telepathy, to make me believe that what she was saying was absolutely true. She stood there in the kitchen of the little apartment with her skeletal hands held out in supplicatory explanation, her legs braced, her red hair all frizzy, trembling and shuddering and grabbing her face from time to time. "It's nothing but bullshit," I yelled, and suddenly I had the feeling I always got when I tried to explain the Dharma to people. Alva, my mother, my relatives, girlfriends, everybody, they never listened. They always wanted me to listen to them. They knew I didn't know anything. I was just a dumb young kid, an impractical fool who didn't understand the serious significance of this very important, very real world. The police are going to swoop down and arrest us all. And not only that, but we're all going to be questioned for weeks and weeks and maybe even years till they found out all the crimes and sins that we have committed. It's a network. It runs in every direction. Finally, they'll arrest everybody in North Beach and even everybody in Greenwich Village. Then Paris. And then finally, they'll have everybody in jail. You don't know. It's only the beginning." She kept jumping at sounds in the hall, thinking the cops were coming. "Why don't you listen to me?" I kept pleading. But each time I said that, she hypnotized me with her staring eyes and almost had me for a while believing in what she believed from the sheer weight of her complete dedication to the discriminations her mind was making. "But you're getting these silly convictions and conceptions out of nowhere. Don't you realize all this life is just a dream? Why don't you just relax and enjoy God? God is you, you fool." "Oh, they're going to destroy you, Ray. I can see it. They're going to fetch all the religious squares too and fix them good. It's only begun. It's all tied in with Russia, though. They won't say it. And there's something I heard about the sun's ray and something about what happens while we're all asleep. Oh, Ray, the world will never be the same." "What world? What difference does it make?" "Please stop. You're scaring me. By God, in fact, you're not scaring me, and I won't listen to another word." I went out angry, bought some wine, and ran into Cowboy and some other musicians, and ran back with the gang to watch her. "Have some wine. Put some wisdom in your head." "No, I'm laying off the lush. All that wine you drink is rotgut. It burns your stomach out. It makes your brain dull. I can tell there's something wrong with you. You're not sensitive. You don't realize what's going on." "Oh, come on." "This is my last night on earth," she added. The musicians and I drank up all the wine and talked till about midnight. And Rosie seemed to be all right now, lying on the couch, talking, even laughing a bit, eating her sandwiches and drinking some tea I'd brewed her. The musicians left, and I slept on the kitchen floor in my new sleeping bag. But when Cody came home that night and I was gone, she went up on the roof while he was asleep and broke the skylight to get jagged bits of glass to cut her wrist, and was sitting there bleeding at dawn when a neighbor saw her and sent for the cops. And when the cops ran out on the roof to help her, that was it. She saw the great cops who were going to arrest us all and made a run for the roof edge. The young Irish cop made a flying tackle and just got a hold of her bathrobe, but she fell out of it and fell naked to the sidewalk, 6 flights below. The musicians who lived downstairs in the basement pad and had been up all night talking and playing records heard the thud. They looked out the basement window and saw that horrible sight. Man, it broke us up. We couldn't make the gig that night. They drew the shades and trembled. Cody was asleep. When I heard about it the next day, when I saw the picture in the paper showing an X on the sidewalk where she had landed, one of my thoughts was, and if she had only listened to me. Was I talking so dumb after all? Are my ideas about what to do so silly and stupid and childlike? Isn't this the time now to start following what I know to be true? And that had done it. The following week, I packed up and decided to hit the road and get out of that city of ignorance, which is the modern city. I said goodbye to Jaffe and the others and hopped my freight back down the coast to L.A. Poor Rosie. She had been absolutely certain that the world was real, and fear was real. And now, what was real? At least, I thought, she's in heaven now, and she knows. Chapter 16. And that's what I said to myself. I am now on the road to heaven. Suddenly it became clear to me that there was a lot of teaching for me to do in my lifetime. As I say, I saw Jaffe before I left. He wandered sadly to the Chinatown Park, had a dinner in Nam Yuan's, came out, sat in the Sunday morning grass, and suddenly, here was this group of Negro preachers standing in the grass, preaching to desultory groups of uninterested Chinese families, letting their kiddies romp in the grass, and to bums who cared just a little bit more. A big fat woman like May Rainey was standing there with her legs outspread, howling out a tremendous sermon in a booming voice that kept breaking from speech to blues-singing music, beautiful, and the reason why this woman, who was such a great preacher, was not preaching in a church was because every now and then she just simply had to go sploosh and spit as hard as she could off the side in the grass. And I'm telling you, the Lord will take care of you if you recognize that you have a new field. Yes, and sploosh. She turns and spits about 10 feet away in a great sploosh of spit. See, I told Jaffe. She couldn't do that in a church. That's her flaw, as a preacher as far as the churches are concerned. But boy, have you ever heard a greater preacher? Yes, says Jaffe, but I don't like all that Jesus stuff she's talking about. What's wrong with Jesus? Didn't Jesus speak of heaven? Isn't heaven Buddha's nirvana? According to your own interpretation, Smith. Jaffe, there were things I wanted to tell Rosie, and I felt suppressed by the schism we have about separating Buddhism from Christianity, east from west. What the hell difference does it make? We're all in heaven now, ain't we? Who said so? Is this nirvana we're in now, or ain't it? It's both nirvana and samsara we're in now. Words, words. What's in a word? Nirvana by any other name. Besides, don't you hear the big old gal calling you and telling you you've got a new field? A new Buddha field, boy? Jaffa was so pleased he wrinkled his eyes and smiled. Whole Buddha fields in every direction for each one of us, and Rosie was a flower we let wither. Never spoke more, truly, Ray. The big old gal came up to us, too, noticing us, especially me. She called me darling, in fact. I can see from your eyes that you understood every word I'm saying, darling. I want you to know, I want you to go to heaven and be happy. I want you to understand every word I'm saying. I heard and understand. Across the street was the new Buddhist temple some young Chamber of Commerce Chinatown Chinese were trying to build, by themselves. One night I'd come by there and, drunk, pitched in with them with a wheelbarrow hauling sand from outside in. They were young Sinclair Lewis idealistic, forward-looking kids who lived in nice homes but put on jeans to come down and work on the church, like you might expect in some Midwest town, some Midwest kids with a bright-faced Richard Nixon leader, the prairie all around. Here, in the heart of the tremendously sophisticated little city called San Francisco, Chinatown, they were doing the same thing, but their church was the Church of Buddha. Strangely, Jaffe wasn't interested in the Buddhism of San Francisco Chinatown because it was traditional Buddhism, not the Zen intellectual artistic Buddhism he loved. But I was trying to make him see that everything was the same. In the restaurant, we'd eaten with chopsticks and enjoyed it. Now he was saying goodbye to me, and I didn't know when I'd see him again. Behind the colored woman was a man preacher who kept rocking with his eyes closed, saying, "That's right." She said to us, "Bless both you boys for listening to what I have to say. Remember that we know that all things work together for good to them that loves God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." Romans 8:18, young guns. And there's a new field a-waitin' for you. And be sure you live up to every one of your obligations. Here now? Yes, ma'am. Been seeing you. I said goodbye to Jaffe. I spent a few days with Cody's family in the hills. He was tremendously sad about Rosie's suicide and kept saying he had to pray for her night and day at this particular crucial moment, when, because she was a suicide, her soul was still flitting around the surface of the earth ready for either purgatory or hell. We got to get her in purgatory, man, so I helped him pray when I slept on his lawn at night in my new sleeping bag. During the days, I took down the little poems his children recited to me in my little breast pocket notebook. "You-hoo, you-hoo, I come to you, boo-hoo, boo-hoo, I love you, blue, blue, the sky is blue, I'm higher than you, boo-hoo, boo-hoo." Meanwhile, Cody was saying, "Don't drink so much of that old wine." Late Monday afternoon, I was at the San Jose yards and waited for the afternoon zipper, due in at 4:30. It was its day off, so I had to wait for the midnight ghost, due in at 7:30. Meanwhile, as soon as it got dark, I cooked my can of macaroni on a little Indian fire of twigs among the deep, dense weeds by the track and ate. The ghost was coming in. A friendly switchman told me I'd better not try to get on it, as there was yard bull at the crossing with a big flashlight who would see if anybody was riding away on it and would phone ahead to Watsonville to have them thrown off. Now, it's winter. The boys have been breaking into the sealed trucks and breaking windows and leaving bottles on the floor, wrecking that train. Now that it's winter, the boys have been breaking into the sealed trucks and breaking windows and leaving bottles on the floor, wrecking that train. I sneaked down to the east end of the yard with heavy pack slung on, and caught the ghost as she was coming out beyond the bull's crossing, and opened the sleeping bag and took my shoes off, put them under my wrapped-up, balled-up coat, and slipped in and slept beautiful, joyous sleep all the way to Watsonville, where I hid by the weeds till highball, got on again and slept, then all night long flying down the unbelievable coast, and O Buddha, thy moonlight, O Christ, thy starling on the sea, surf, tangar, gaviota, the train going 80 miles an hour, and me warm as toast in my sleeping bag, flying down and going home for Christmas. In fact, I only woke up at about 7 o'clock in the morning, when the train was slowing down into the L.A. yards, and first thing I saw was, as I was putting my shoes on and getting my stuff ready to jump off, was a yard worker waving at me and yelling, "Welcome to L.A." But I was bound to get out of there fast. The smog was heavy. My eyes were weeping from it. The sun was hot, the air stank. A regular hell is L.A. And I had caught a cold from Cody's kids and had the old California virus and felt miserable now. With the water dripping out of reefer refrigerators, I gathered up palmfuls and splashed it in my face, and washed my teeth and combed my hair and walked into L.A. to wait until 7:30 in the evening when I planned to catch the Zipper first-class freight to Yuma, Arizona. It was a horrible day waiting. I drank coffee in Skid Row coffee houses, South Main Street coffee, and 17 cents. At nightfall, I was lurking around waiting for my train. A bum was sitting in the doorway watching me with peculiar interest. I went over to talk to him. He said he was an ex-Marine from Paterson, New Jersey, and after a while he whipped out a little slip of paper he read sometimes on freight trains. I looked at it. It was a quotation from the Digha Nikaya, the words of Buddha. I smiled. I didn't say anything. He was a great, voluble bum, and a bum who didn't drink. He was an idealistic hobo, and said, "That's all there is to it. That's what I like to do. I'd rather hop freights around the country and cook my food out of tin cans over wood fires than be rich and have a home or work. I'm satisfied. I used to have arthritis, you know. I was in the hospital for years. I found out a way to cure it, and then I hit the road, and I've been on it ever since." "How'd you cure your arthritis?" "I got from both libitus myself." "You do? Well, this'll work for you too. Just stand on your head 3 times a day, or maybe 5 minutes. Every morning when I get up, whether it's in the river bottom or right on a train that's rolling along, I put a little mat on the floor and I stand on my head and count to 500. That's about 3 times, isn't it? Sorry, that's about 3 minutes, isn't it?" He was very concerned about whether counting up to 500 made it 3 minutes. That was strange. I figured he was worried about his arithmetic record in school. "Yeah, about that. Just do that every day, and your phlebitis will go away like my arthritis did. I'm 40, you know. Also, before you go to bed at night, have hot milk and honey. I always have a little jar of honey." He fished one out from his pack, and I put the milk in a can and the honey and heat it over the fire and drink it. Just those 2 things. Okay. I vowed to take his advice because he was Buddha. The result was that in about 3 months, my phlebitis disappeared completely and didn't show up ever again, which is amazing. In fact, since that time, I've tried to tell doctors about this, but they seem to think I'm crazy. Dharma bum. Dharma bum. I'll never forget that intelligent Jewish ex-Marine bum from Paterson, New Jersey, whoever he was, with his little slip of paper to read in the raw-gone night by gripping reefer platforms in the nowhere industrial formations of an America that is still magic America. Not anymore. At 7:30, my zipper came in and was being made up by the switchman, and I hid in the weeds to catch it, hiding partly behind a telephone pole. It pulled out surprisingly fast, I thought, and with my heavy 50-pound rucksack, I ran out and trotted along, till I saw an agreeable drawbar and took a hold of it and hold on the and climbed straight to the top of the box to have a good look at the whole train and see where my flat car'd be. Holy smokes, goddamn, and all ye fallen candles of heaven smash. But as the train picked up tremendous momentum and tore out of that yard, I saw it was a bloody, no-good 18-car sealed son of a bitch, and at almost 20 miles an hour it was do or die. Get off or hang on to my life at 80 miles per impossible on a boxcar top. So I had to scramble down the rungs again, but first I had to untangle my strap clip from where it had got caught in the catwalk on top, so by the time I was hanging from the lowest rung and ready to drop off, we were going too fast now. Slinging the rucksack and holding it hard in one hand calmly and madly, I stepped off, hoping for the best, and turned everything away and only staggered a few feet, and I was safe on ground. But now I was 3 miles into the industrial jungle of L.A., in mad, sick, sniffing smog night, and had to sleep all that night by a wire fence in a ditch by the tracks, being waked up all night by rackets of Southern Pacific and Santa Fe switchers belly-aching around, till fog and clear of midnight, when I breathed better, thinking and praying in my sack, but then more fog and smog again, and horrible damp white cloud of dawn, and my bag too hot to sleep in, and outside too raw to stand, nothing but horror all night long, except at dawn a little bird blessed me. The only thing to do was to get out of L.A., according to my friend's instructions. I stood on my head, using the wire fence to prevent me from falling over. It made my cold feel a little better. Then I walked to the bus station, through tracks and side streets, and caught a cheap bus 25 miles to Riverside. Cops kept looking at me suspiciously with that big bag on my back. Everything was far away from the easy purity of being with Jaffe Ryder in that high rock camp under peaceful singing stars. Chapter 17. It took exactly the entire 25 miles to get out of the smog of Los Angeles. The sun was clear in Riverside. I exulted to see a beautiful dry river bottom, with white sand and just a trickle river in the middle as we rolled over the bridge into Riverside. I was looking for my first chance to camp out for the night and try out my new ideas. But at the hot bus station, a Negro saw me with my pack and came over and said he was part Mohawk. And when I told him I was going back up the road to sleep in that river bottom, he said, "No, sir, you can't do that. Cops in this town are the toughest in the state. If they see you down there, they'll pull you in, boy," said he. "I'd like to sleep outdoor too tonight, but's against the law." "This ain't India, is it?" I said, sore, and walked off anyway to try it. It was just like the cop in the San Jose yards. Even though it was against the law and they were trying to catch you, the only thing to do was do it anyway and keep hidden. I laughed, thinking, what would happen if I was Fuke, the Chinese sage of the 9th century who wandered around China, constantly ringing his bell, the only alternative to sleeping out, hopping freights, and doing what I wanted. I saw in a vision would be just sit with 100 other patients in front of a nice television set in a madhouse where we could be supervised. I went into a supermarket and bought some concentrated orange juice, and nutted cream cheese, and whole wheat bread, which would make nice meals till tomorrow, when I'd hitchhike on through the other side of town. I saw many cop cruising cars, and they were looking at me suspiciously. Sleek, well-paid cops in brand-new cars with all that expensive radio equipment to see that no Behiku slept in his grove tonight. At the highway woods, I took one good look to make sure no cruisers were up or down the road, and I dove right in the woods. It was a lot of dry thickets I had to crash through. I didn't want to bother finding the Boy Scout trail. I aimed straight for the golden sands of the river bottom I could see up ahead. Over the thickets ran the highway bridge. No one could see me unless they stopped and got out to stare down. Like a criminal, I crashed through bright, brittle thickets and came out sweating and stomped ankle-deep in streams. And then, when I found a piece of opening in a kind of bamboo grove, I hesitated to light a fire till dusk, when no one had seen my smoke, small, and make sure to keep it low embers. I spread my poncho and sleeping bag out on some dry, rackety grove bottom leaves and bamboo split joints. Yellow aspens filled the afternoon air with gold smoke and made my eyes quiver. It was a nice spot except for the roar of trucks on the river bridge. My head, cold and sinus were bad, and I stood on my head 5 minutes. I laughed. What would people think if they saw me? But it wasn't funny. I felt rather sad. In fact, real sad, like the night before in that horrible fog wire fence county. But it wasn't funny. I felt rather sad, in fact, real sad, like the night before in that horrible fog wire fence country in industrial LA, when in fact I'd cried a little. After all, a homeless man has reason to cry. Everything in the world is pointed against him. It got dark. I took my pot and went to get water, but had to scramble through so much underbrush that when I got back to my camp, most of the water had splashed out. I mixed it in my new plastic shaker with orange juice concentrate and shook up an ice-cold orange. Then I spread nutted cream cheese on the whole wheat bread and ate content. Tonight, I thought, I sleep tight and long and pray under the stars for the Lord to bring me to Buddhahood after my Buddha work is done. Amen. And as it was Christmas, I added, Lord bless you all and merry tender Christmas on all your rooftops, and I hope angels squat there the night of the big rich real star. Amen. And then I thought later, lying on my bag smoking, everything is possible. I am God. I am Buddha. I am imperfect Ray Smith. All at the same time. I am empty space. I am all things. I have all the time in the world from life to life to do what is to do what is done, to do the timeless doing, infinitely perfect within. Why cry? Why worry? Perfect like mine essence and the minds of banana peels. I added laughing, remembering my poetic Zen lunatic Dharma Bum friends of San Francisco, whom I was beginning to miss now. And I added a little prayer for Rosie. If she'd lived and could have come here with me, maybe I could have told her something made her feel different. Maybe I'd just make love to her and say nothing. I spent a long time meditating cross-legged, but the truck growl bothered me. Soon the stars came out, and my little Indian fire sent up some smoke to them. I slipped in my bag at 11 and slept well, except for the bamboo joints under the leaves that caused me to turn over all night. Better to sleep in an uncomfortable bed free than sleep in a comfortable bed unfree. I was making up all kinds of sayings as I went along. I was started on my new life and with my new equipment, a regular Don Quixote of tenderness. In the morning I felt exhilarated and meditated first thing and made up a little prayer. I bless you, all living things. I bless you in the endless past. I bless you in the endless present. I bless you in the endless future. Amen. This little prayer made me feel good and fool good as I packed up my things and took off to the tumbling water that came down from a rock across the highway. Delicious spring water to bathe my face in and wash my teeth in and drink. Then I was ready for the 3,000-mile hitchhike to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, where my mother was waiting, probably washing the dishes in her dear, pitiful kitchen. Chapter 18. The current song at the time was Roy Hamilton singing Everybody's Got a Home But Me. I kept singing that as I swung along. On the other side of Riverside, I got on the highway and got a ride right away from a young couple to an airfield 5 miles out of town, and from there a ride from a quiet man almost to Beaumont, California. But 5 miles short of it, on a double-lane speed highway with nobody likely to stop, so I hiked on in beautiful sparkling air. At Beaumont, I ate hot dogs, hamburgers, and a bag of fries and added a big strawberry shake, all among giggling high school children. Then, the other side of town, I got a ride from a Mexican called Jamie, who said he was the son of the governor of the state of Baja California, Mexico, which I didn't believe and was a wino, and had me buy him wine, which he only threw up out of the window as he drove. A droopy, sad, helpless young man, very sad eyes, very nice, but a bit nutty. He was driving clear to Mexicali, a little off my route, but good enough and far enough out toward Arizona to suit me. At Calexico, it was Christmas shopping time on Main Street, with incredible, perfect, astonished Mexican beauties, who kept getting so much better that when the first ones had repassed, they'd already become capped and thin in my mind. I was standing there, looking every which way, eating an ice cream cone, waiting for Jamie, who said he had an errand and would pick me up again and take me personally into Mexicali, Mexico, to meet his friends. My plan was to have a nice cheap supper in Mexico, and then roll on that night. Jamie didn't show up, of course. I crossed the border by myself and turned sharp right at the gate to avoid the Hawker Street and went immediately to relieve myself of water in construction dirt. But a crazy Mexican watchman with an official uniform thought it was a big infringement and said something, and when I said I didn't know, no see, he said, no sabe, police? The nerve of him to call the cops because I peed on his dirt ground. But I did notice afterward, and felt sad, that I had watered the spot where he sat to light a small fire nights, because there were wood coals piled, so I moved up the muddy street feeling meek and truly sorry, with the big pack on my back, as he stared after me with his doleful stare. I came to a hill and saw great mud-flat river bottoms, with stinks and tarns and awful paths, with women and burros ambling in the dusk. An old Chinese-Mexican beggar caught my eye, and we stopped to chat. When I told him I might go dormiendo, sleep, in those flats, I was really thinking of a little beyond the flats, in the foothills. He looked horrified, and being a deaf-mute, he demonstrated that I would be robbed of my pack and killed if I tried it, which I suddenly realized was true. It wasn't in America anymore, either side of the border. Either way you sliced the bologna, a homeless man was in hot water. Where would I find a quiet grove to meditate in, to live in forever? After the old man tried to tell me his life story by signs, I walked away waving and smiling and crossed the flats and narrow board bridge over the yellow water and over to the poor adobe district of Mexicali, where the Mexico gaiety as ever charmed me, and I ate a delicious tin bowl of garbanzo soup with pieces of cabeza head and cabola onion raw, having cashed a quarter at the border gate for 3 paper pesos and a big pile of huge pennies. While eating at the little mud street counter, I dug the street. The people, the poor bitch dogs, the cantinas, the whores, the music, men goofing in the narrow road, wrestling, and across the street an unforgettable beauty parlor, Salon de Belleza, with a bare mirror on the bare wall and bare chairs, and one little 17-year-old beauty with her hair in pins dreaming at the mirror, but an old plaster bust with periwig beside her, and a big man with a mustache in a Scandinavian ski sweater, picking his teeth behind, and a little boy at the next mirror chair, eating a banana, and out on the sidewalk some little children gathered like before a movie house, and I thought, oh, all Mexicali on some Saturday afternoon. Thank you, O Lord, for returning me my zest for life, for thy ever-recurring forms in thy womb of exuberant fertility. All my tears weren't in vain. It'll all work out finally. What a bullshit artist. I'm sorry. Then strolling, I bought a hot donut stick, then 2 oranges from a girl, and recrossed the bridge in dust of evening, and headed for the border gate happy. But here I was stopped by 3 unpleasant American guards, and my whole rucksack was searched sullenly. What did you buy in Mexico? Nothing. They didn't believe me. They fished around. After fingering my wraps of leftover French fries from Beaumont and raisins and peanuts and carrots and cans of pork and beans, I made sure to have for the road and half loaves of whole wheat bread. They got disgusted and let me go. It was funny, really. They were expecting a rucksack full of opium from Sinaloa, no doubt, or weed from Mazatlan, or heroin from Panama. Maybe they thought I'd walked all the way from Panama. They couldn't figure me out. I went to the Greyhound bus station and bought a short ticket to El Centro and the main highway. I figured I'd catch the Arizona Midnight Ghost and be in Yuma that same night, and sleep in the Colorado River bottom, which I'd noticed long ago. But it wound up in El Centro. I went to the yards and angled around and finally talked to a conductor passing the sign to a switch engine. Where's the zipper? It don't come through El Centro. I was surprised at my stupidity. Only freight you can catch goes through Mexico, then Yuma, and they'll find you and kick you out, and you'll wind up in a Mexican calaboose, boy. I've had enough of Mexico, thanks. So I went to the big intersection in town with the cars turning for the eastward run to Yuma and started thumbing. I had no luck for an hour. Suddenly, a big truck pulled up to the side. The driver got out and fiddled with his suitcase. You gain on east? I asked. Soon as I spend a little time in Mexicali. You know anything about Mexico? Lived there for years. He looked me over. He was a good old Joel. Fat, happy, Middle Western. He liked me. How about showing me around Mexicali tonight? Then I'll drive you to Tucson or Tucson. Great. We got in the truck and went right back to Mexicali, on the road I'd just covered in the bus. But it was worth it to get clear to Tucson. We parked the truck at Calexico, which was quiet now at 11, and went over to Mexicali, and I took him away from the tourist trap honky-tonks and led him to the good old saloons of real Mexico, where there were girls at a peso, a dance and raw tequila, and lots of fun. It was a big night. He danced and enjoyed himself, had his pleasure taken with a senorita, and drank about 20 shots of tequila. Somewhere during the night we hooked up with a colored guy who was some kind of queer but was awfully funny, and led us to a whorehouse. And then, as we were coming out, a Mexican cop relieved him of his snap knife. "That's my third knife this month those bastards stole from me," he said. In the morning, Baudry, the driver, and I got back to the truck, bleary-eyed and hungover, and he wasted no time and drove right straight to Yuma, not going back to El Centro, but on the excellent no-traffic Highway 98, straight 100 miles after hitting 80 at Gray Wells. Soon we were in fact coming into Tucson. We'd eaten a slight lunch outside Yuma, and now he said he was hungry for a good steak. Only thing is these truck stops ain't got big enough steaks to suit me. Well, you just park your truck up one of those Tucson supermarkets on the highway, and I'll buy a 2-inch thick T-bone, and we'll stop in the desert, and I'll light a fire and broil you the greatest steak of your life. He didn't really believe it, but I sat outside the lights of Tucson in a flaming red dusk over the desert. He stopped, and I lit a fire with mesquite branches, adding bigger branches and logs later, as it got dark, and when the coals were hot, I tried to hold the steak over them with a spit, but the spit burned, so I just fried the huge steaks in their own fat in my lovely new pot pan cover, and handed him my jackknife, and he went to it and said, wow, that is the best steak I ever ate. I also bought milk, and we just had steak and milk, a great protein feast, squatting there in the sand as highway cars zipped by our little red fire. "Where'd you learn to do all these funny things?" he laughed. And you know, I say funny, but there's something so darn sensible about 'em. Here I am killing myself driving this rig back and forth from Ohio to L.A., and I make more money than you ever had in your whole life as a hobo. But you're the one who enjoys life, and not only that, but you do it without working or a whole lot of money. Now who's smart, you or me? And he had a nice home in Ohio, with wife, daughter, Christmas tree, 2 cars, garage, lawn, lawnmower. But he couldn't enjoy any of it because he really wasn't free. It was sadly true. It didn't mean I was a better man than he was. However, he was a great man, and I liked him, and he liked me, and said, "Well, I'll tell you something. Supposing I drive you all the way to Ohio." "Wow, great! That'll take me just about home. I'm going to south of there, to North Carolina." I was hesitating at first on account of them Markel insurance men. See, if they catch you riding with me, I'll lose my job. Oh, hell. Ain't that something typical? It sure is. But I'll tell you something. After this steak you made for me, even though I paid for it, but you cooked it, and here you are, washing your dishes in sand, I'll just have to tell them to stick their job up their ass, because now you're my friend, and I got a right to give my friend a ride. Okay, I said, and I'll pray we don't get stopped by no Markle insurance men. Good chance of that because it's Saturday now and we'll be in Springfield, Ohio at about dawn to Tuesday if I push this rig, and it's their weekend off, more or less. I hate this language. It's bothering me. I'm sorry. I find it hard. It's so simple, but I find it hard to read. Maybe that's just because I got through reading Huxley. Fuck. Anyway. And did he ever push that rig? From the desert in Arizona, he roared on up to New Mexico. On up. God, I hate this language. Took the cut through Las Cruces up to Alamogordo, where the atom bomb was first blasted, and where I had a strange vision as we drove along, seeing in the clouds above the Alamogordo mountains the words as if imprinted in the sky. This is the impossibility of the existence of anything, which was a strange place for that strange true vision. And then he batted on through the beautiful Atascadero Indian country in the uphills of New Mexico, beautiful green valleys and pines and New England-like rolling meadows, and then down to Oklahoma. At outside Bowie, Arizona, we'd had a short nap at dawn. He in the truck, me in my bag in the cold red clay, with just stars blazing silence overhead, and a distant coyote in no time at all. He was going up through Arkansas and eating it up in one afternoon, and then Missouri and St. Louis, and finally on Monday night bashing across Illinois and Indiana and into old snowy Ohio, with all the cute Christmas lights making my heart joy in the windows of old farms. Wow, I thought, all the way from the warm arms of the senoritas of Mexicali to the Christmas snows of Ohio in one fast ride. He had a radio on his dashboard and played it booming all the way, too. We didn't talk much. He just yelled once in a while, telling me an anecdote, and had such a loud voice that he actually pierced my eardrum, the left one, and made it hurt, making me jump 2 feet in my seat. He was great. Of course you would say that. Whatever. We had a lot of good meals, too, en route in various favorite truck stops of his. One in Oklahoma, where we had roast pork and yams worthy of my mother's own kitchen. We ate and ate. He was always hungry. In fact, so was I. It was winter cold now, and Christmas was on the fields, and food was good. In Independence, Missouri, we made our way. In Independence, Missouri, we made our only stop to sleep in a room in a hotel at almost $5 apiece, which was robbery. But he needed the sleep, and I couldn't wait in the below-zero truck. When I woke up in the morning on Monday, I looked out and saw all the eager young men in business suits going to work in insurance offices, hoping to be big hairy Trumans someday. By Tuesday dawn, he let me off in downtown Springfield, Ohio, in a deep cold wave, and we said goodbye just a little sadly. I went to a lunch cart, drank tea, figured my budget, went to a hotel, and had one good, exhausted sleep. Then I bought a bus ticket to Rocky Mount, as it was impossible to hitchhike from Ohio to North Carolina. In all that winter mountain country, through the Blue Ridge and all. But I got impatient and decided to hitchhike anyway, and asked the bus to stop on the outskirts, and walked back to the bus station to cash my ticket. They wouldn't give me the money. The upshot of my insane impatience was that I had to wait 8 more hours for the next slow bus to Charleston, West Virginia. I started hitchhiking out of Springfield, figuring to catch the bus in a town farther down, just for fun, and froze my feet and hands standing in dismal country roads in freezing dusk. One good ride took me to a little town, and there I just waited around the tiny telegraph office, which served as a station, till my bus arrived. Then it was a crowded bus going slower over the mountains all night long, and in the dawn the laborious climb over the Blue Ridge with beautiful timbered country in the snow. Then after a whole day of stopping and starting, down out of the mountains into the Mount Airy, and finally, after ages, Raleigh, where I transferred to my local bus and instructed the driver to let me off at the country road that wound 3 miles through the piney woods to my mother's house in Big Easenburg Woods, which is a country crossroad outside Rocky Mount. He let me off at about 8 p.m., and I walked the 3 miles in silent freezing Carolina road of moon, watching a jet plane overhead, her stream drifting across the face of the moon and bisecting the snow circle. It was beautiful to be back east in the snow at Christmas time, the little lights in occasional farm windows, the quiet woods, the piney barrens so naked and drear, the railroad track that ran off into the gray-blue woods toward my dream. At 9 o'clock, I was stomping with full pack across my mother's yard, and there she was at the white-tiled sink in the kitchen, washing her dishes, with a rueful expression waiting for me. I was late, worried I'd never even make it, and probably thinking, poor Raymond, why does he always have to hitchhike and worry me to death? Why isn't he like other men? And I thought of Jaffe as I stood there in the cold yard, looking at her. Why is he so mad about white-tiled sinks and kitchen machinery, as he calls it? People have good hearts, whether or not they live like Dharma Bums. Compassion is the heart of Buddhism. Behind the house was a great pine forest, where I would spend all that winter and spring meditating under the trees and finding out by myself the truth of all things. I was very happy. I walked around the house and looked at the Christmas tree in the window. 100 yards down the road, the 2 country stores made a bright, warm scene in the otherwise bleak wooded void. I went to the doghouse and found old Bob trembling and snorting in the cold. He whimpered, glad to see me. I unleashed him, and he yipped and leaped around and came into the house with me, where I embraced my mother in the warm kitchen, and my sister and brother-in-law came out of the parlor and greeted me, and little nephew Lou too, and I was home again.